Gotcha.
So maybe,
Sorry. But that's funny.
maybe
When is the wedding?
next month.
Oh wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What day?
The 25th on Memorial Day weekend.
Nice. A lot of family coming for
9
that?
days. What?
A lot of family coming in?
Um, we'll see. There are a couple of people who have some challenges but
Mhm.
we don't have a huge family, so it's more our friends that are doing the traveling. I have
Okay.
a friend from, I think I get to win the person coming the farthest from London.
Oh
So that'll
wow.
be fun. I'm just shocked that she's coming. It means the world to me.
Yeah, that is
So
awesome. That's fantastic. Well, cool. Well, I hope all the plans go well for you. I know
thank you.
there's a lot involved in that. So,
Just a little.
yeah. So I am driven, Jenna, to help others increase their gratitude, positivity, and resilience through my speaking, through my book, and my other offerings. What drives you to do what you do?
It depends on the day. So
Mhm.
sometimes I'm in it for the money.
Yep.
But in general, my passion for HR is really helping people get to where they want to be in their careers, in the with the path of least resistance to do that.
Yeah.
So um, and really being able to help people when they're in a yucky spot, whether it's disciplinary or personal or health, um, those kind of things. I enjoy mentoring people, helping them get where they
That's
want to be.
excellent. Yeah, that's definitely needed in the HR department to have someone there who has a helping heart, who wants to give and get those people out of those, as you say, yucky situations. So that's that encompasses so many things. So
Yes,
today we're gonna
so many things.
yeah, so many things. We won't get into it here, but we're gonna talk today. We're gonna talk about possible struggles you might have with employee retention, work climate, and group or personal mindset, and how we can overcome them with some easy to implement steps. And usually, I have this cue as how does that sound? Since it's you and me talking, and we seem to have a pretty good rapport, I don't think it's gonna be much of an issue. So
That's fine.
what yeah, what I'd like to start out with is what has worked well to keep your people motivated and positive through those struggling times, those yucky times, and has helped you with dealing with employee retention, work climate, or personal or group mindset?
So that it's a depending on which company I'm working with, and I am new to Pizenti and Brinker. I've only been here 6 months. So I'm just now living through the most challenging time of the year for a large group of our employees, our tax
Mhm.
accountants. It's tax
Yep.
season. So
Yes.
what seems to help and motivate when people have really a lot on their plates here are the weird perks that don't work other places. So, like lunch, providing lunch, having something to look forward to. Like, we're going to have a party next week we're not going to call it end of tax season anymore, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
So, we're having a party where employees can bring a plus one and just kind of hang and chill and eat some food, play some games, and win some prizes. And people really like that. Having
Are-
a nice work space is important. And um, also, when there are issues, addressing them quickly
Mhm.
and being as transparent as possible.
Excellent. What kind of games you playing at this party?
Oh, it's casino night.
Oh wow. Okay. That sounds fun. Hopefully, people aren't relying on their tax returns to pay their bills or pay what they owe the house then.
Well, this is, the company is providing the play money, so
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
yeah.
Very cool. It sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds like you have some really nice positive attributes to working for this and then you said what company is it called again?
Pisenti and Brinker, it's a accounting firm.
Okay. How do you spell that first word?
Pisenti,
Pizenti and the second one?
Brinker, Brinker.
Okay, Brinker. Okay. Pizenti and Brinker. Okay. All right. No, and you talk about weird perks. Besides being a speaker, I'm also an online teacher. And so being able to work from home, drive my kids to school every day, wear slippers while I'm teaching is something that we online teachers really enjoy. And
Yeah,
so
I used to
it,
be one of those online only people.
oh wow,
And
okay.
until I came here.
Hmm.
And here I'm hybrid. And
Okay.
we have two different offices that have two different cultures, and it's very interesting navigating between them, and then I'm at home part-time.
Yeah.
So having flexibility is good. Some of our team has more flexibility than others,
Yep.
and just really communicating the whys seems to have been beneficial.
Excellent. So what are some, how are struggles, with, have you had some struggles with employee retention? I know especially during tax season that could be really taxing, pardon the pun. Um,
Um, we don't have so much difficulty with retention, but
okay.
finding people to hire um,
Okay.
that are qualified. That's the bigger challenge. And yeah, retention really isn't really, we don't have very much voluntary turnover.
Okay. That is really nice because it can get expensive trying to keep training new people.
Well,
So that's
recruiting
good.
them, getting them up to speed. Yeah, the whole thing, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. And then how about what about the work climate or the mindset of like the group or a random person?
So I think
Yeah.
overall, um, the team wants a little more communication coming down from the top. And
Okay.
we got that message loud and clear in our last survey of the team. And the E-team has been cognizant and trying harder to provide more information. Um, just transparency. And when that happens, I think people, they seem to open up and ask more questions and feel more secure asking those questions. Obviously, you're going to have some people who are like that regardless, and some who will never do that. But that it's not really a ask me anything kind of mentality, but it's very close to that when
Okay.
we have group meetings. So that kind of communication, I think, is really valued, and the timeliness of responses are important to the leadership team. So we practice what we preach in that regard.
That's great. Yeah. I know that, in my teaching capacity, we recently hired a new assistant principal. And without getting into too much, she was such a breath of fresh air from what we had in the past. And so you talk about that transparency of asking her anything and coming up to her and not worrying about retribution or a
Yeah,
snide remark. It's yeah, it does make a world of difference.
I do think that we do have some challenges, generationally and office location wise. So I told you before, we have 2 locations, and one is a smaller office, and a good number of the people in that office have worked together for 2 decades or longer.
Mhm.
And have not had to adapt much to the new generations entering the workforce and expectations that they bring with them. So we've had some challenges in that office with the old guard having a hard time with the up and comers and how
Okay.
to react to them and interact with them. It's really more familial in that office, and they accept people right away, which is awesome.
Mhm.
Except then they think that they have this relationship with you that you don't reciprocate. So they're too
Oh,
familiar, and it can cause some issues. So we're kind of dealing with that right now and trying to look at how can millennials work better with Gen X and baby boomers. And that's a
yep.
huge way that I don't see a lot of training out there going up the line. There is a lot. Baby
Yeah.
boomers, this is how you work with millennials, and Gen Y and Gen X. This is how, why is it always on the older person to try to figure out how to work with the younger person? Because there is absolutely no grace coming from the bottom up in that. So cancel
Okay.
culture is alive and well. And
Yeah.
for somebody who's been in the workforce for 40 years, it's really hard to change behavior when
Yeah,
you
I'm
grew up
sure.
thinking this is okay, and then this new generation comes in and says this is not okay, and you're a horrible human being
Mhm.
because you said whatever you said, right? So
Yeah.
I think the training has to go both ways, and right now I'm not seeing a lot of it going from, okay, millennial and Gen Y, this is how you deal with those people who have been in the workforce a bit longer than you have, who think it's still
Gotcha.
okay to do something that is totally not PC anymore.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I
when
understand.
you're really isolated and haven't had a lot of more junior people in your office for 20 years, you don't know that
Mhm.
what a microaggression is and that it's inappropriate and
Yeah.
how to even recognize it. And why did that person seem to be okay with the teasing and now you have a complaint against you, right?
Mhm.
It's that complete incomprehension of how that happens. And on the flip side is on the younger person's viewpoint, they don't have there's no leeway. It's like there's no excuse for you not knowing this.
Yeah.
Okay, be that as it may, 10 years ago, this was okay in the workplace.
Mm.
It's a big
Yeah,
ask.
that is quite interesting that, the way you explained that. It's almost like they're living in 2 different societies or bubbles.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so, is this affecting your company tangibly, like, on the bottom line? Or is it
Um,
more of the intangible, those
right
feelings that you can't really see on paper?
right now it's more intangible. However,
Mhm.
if things escalate or don't change in a more positive way, absolutely will be tangible because we could potentially lose top performers
Yeah,
or
totally understand that.
people who are future leaders won't stay if
Yeah.
they feel respected. And
Okay. No, thank you for sharing that. And, again, it's quite interesting. Um, teaching online like I do, we have a large spectrum of teachers. We have teachers who've taught for many, many years. We have teachers coming in from college and in between. And so, even though we are in our own houses, we communicate all the time. And
Mhm.
so it's, that flow of communication by and large really helps us navigate those waters. So I haven't ever had to experience that kind of situation. So thank you for, I mean, I'm sorry you're going through it, but thank you for enlightening me
It's
on that.
it's okay, and, it's not the first place that I've seen this, and sometimes, um, culture plays a huge factor into it. So,
Yeah.
um, where you're born, where you grew up. So
Hmm.
people who are expats to the US, how they learned to interact with people in their culture of birth might be significantly different than the culture that they come into in the US workforce.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of problem, right? How do you navigate that when English is not the first language and somebody's searching for a word, and so they pantomime in order to make themselves understood, and then that pantomime is taken poorly.
Yeah.
So there's I'm a ER specialist, so
Oh,
I'm
okay.
I have seen a lot. But those are big things that used to not be such issues, and now they're very much. And even the culture from Florida to San Francisco, Miami to San Francisco might be closer than we think, but somebody in Nashville may have a totally different way of working than somebody in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So, just having a little, people just need to give each other a little bit of grace.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And I hope today what I can provide will help you a little bit with that. And so I do want to offer what I call a care warning, because I am going to get a little into my personal backstory that does involve physical and mental trauma. So I just want to put that in there. But, when you talk about these different factions, the Gen Xers and the baby boomers and the millennials, well, something that they all have in common is that they all have an origin story. I'm not sure if you are familiar or you like superheroes a lot, Jenna. Um, I am a big fan of superheroes. I mean, you can see my cape behind me. There's a reason why I have a cape. And one of the reasons I love superheroes is because while they may have some fantastic powers and stories that they live out, they also have a place of origin. And
Mhm.
I'm not talking about where they got their powers, where they got their training, but it's where they made a decision to become a hero. There was a line they drew in the sand that said, okay, I have some questions I have to answer here. And based on my answers, that's going to set me on this trajectory to don that cape or those tights or whatever uniform they're wearing. And so when we're considering those questions, we have to ask ourselves, what am I thinking? Because where our thoughts go, your mind and body will follow. I'm sure you might see this in the office. The millennial will think something, and then that will perpetuate into a mindset, and they'll take those actions. They'll cancel that person, as you said, based on what they're thinking or the mindset is. And then the
Yep.
same way with the baby boomer, they'll think, well, this is okay. And so if these things are okay, then I'm okay doing this, and they're going to take that action. And so, like everyone else, I was like that. I had a place where I started where I had some questions, but I have a little backstory here. So, about 9 years ago, I was an average, ordinary husband and father of three. This is my wife, Becky, and our three kids, Josh, Seth, and Anna. Those little twins are going to actually turn 12 on Saturday. So this is a while ago. Um, but we, live here in New Ulm, Minnesota. Becky and I are both teachers. She teaches the high school up in town here. And At that time, things were going great. We're getting the kids carted from here to there and everywhere. I was a runner at the time, so I like hitting the road, sometimes with a kid in a stroller. You ever see someone running in a race pushing a stroller? That was me at one time. And so we were just living our best lives until one day I was helping Becky get the kids into the car, into our van, and I happened to swing them back and forth like an airplane, but I veered too far to the right and scratched the back of my right hand on our exterior garage wall. I looked at it, saw it wasn't bleeding, and quoted one of my favorite movie lines of all time: "'Tis but a scratch." I can see you're laughing. You're familiar. It wasn't bleeding, so I figured I'll take care of it after I put the kids into the van. So I put everyone to the van. I kissed them all goodbye. And as Becky drove the kids away, I went into the house to wash off my hand, bandage it up, and start my day of online teaching. 3 days later, I wake up and I have this weird bump on my elbow. I've never seen it before. I thought maybe I did something when I was bowling the night before. Becky's school had a bowling event and there was a weird 7-10 split I tried to get. Maybe I jerked my arm a different way. Well, I went to the urgent care to get it checked out. They said it might be bursitis, which is an inflammation of the bursa sac in our joints. Check it, keep an eye on it, see what happens. So I kept an eye on it as the bump grew and grew and grew until my right arm was 3 times the size of my left. You see, I have my puny banner left arm and then my Hulk smash right arm, though I was feeling less smashing, angry, and more sicky and tiredy. Becky took me to the emergency room as soon as we got a babysitter for the kids. They kept me overnight, not only because I had a huge arm, but during the day I had gone septic. And they needed to keep an eye on me in case my blood pressure bottomed out. You seem to understand what sepsis is. It's pretty
Yeah.
nasty stuff. So they kept me overnight. And in the morning, that attending doctor came into my hospital room and said something I would never forget. She said, "Mr. Gordon, this is beyond us. We can do nothing more for you here. Where do you want to go?" Well, I live 2 hours from the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. So I said there, and not only because it's the Mayo Clinic, but because Becky's parents lived in Rochester. And so I knew she, the kids, and Max the dog would have a place to stay for I was sure 2 or 3 days. This would take to resolve itself because, of my advanced medical training as a special education teacher. So they fly me to Rochester. Once they get me to St. Mary's, the flagship hospital in the system, they quickly diagnose me with necrotizing fasciitis,
Right.
also
Not
known as
good.
flesh-eating bacteria. Have you ever heard of necrotizing fasciitis?
I have, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so as soon as they knew what it was, they got to work and they were very familiar with it because a week prior, another man had gone in, he had lost his arm and still died. So I was in a pretty serious spot. So they performed a number of surgeries. I was in a coma for 5 days. They ended up removing all the skin and tissue from my right arm, shoulder, chest, and back. And once they saw that where the infection had gone, they had seen that the infection had gone so far into my right arm that they were going to have to amputate. It wasn't a question. They were going to do it. But thankfully, the occupational therapist who was working with the surgeons saw that I still had hand function. So they took a 15-inch by 4-inch flap of skin and placed it on my right hand and forearm here. I'm sure we can see it there. So since this is my thigh on my hand, I call this my thand. Copyright pending. But now I have a huge hole in my leg. So they they extracted the vastus lateralis, my outermost quadricep muscle. And to close the wound, they installed two knobs, one on either side of my wound, and then a shoestring type contraption called a Jacob's ladder. And they would tighten the wounds every so often to close it over time. And then to cover my exposed skin and tissue and muscles on my right side, they took a skin graft harvester, or as I like to call it, a cheese slicer on steroids, and ran it up and down my thighs and my back. So I had enough to cover all that exposed area. And in fact, the skin graft harvesting still took a number of weeks after I woke up from my hospital from my coma. So finally, I did wake up, obviously, and I had all these questions, but no answers. And remember what I said before, Jenna, where your thoughts go, your mind and body will follow.
Mhm.
Well, I had no answers to these questions. Questions like, what was I going to be able to do when I fully recovered, if I fully recovered? How was I going to relate to Becky, the kids, my family and friends, my coworkers? How was I going to handle scratching my hand again or any other part of my body? How were we going to deal with this financially? And I was lying in my hospital bed with all these questions and nothing anywhere close to an answer. I can feel myself growing more negative and starting to getting a little depressed because even though I had a smile on my face whenever I saw people, those questions weren't getting answered. And I just felt myself starting to go into a whirlpool of negativity. And thankfully though, Becky came to my rescue and she started telling me about all these great things that people are doing for us. Now, in Minnesota, it was April when we had this conversation, or late March, which is technically spring, but in Minnesota, it's winter round two. So we still had plenty of snow on the driveways and the walkways. And so our neighbors were clearing those off for us. The local police department was checking on our house every day because when you live in a small town, the words flesh eating bacteria spread as much as the actual bacteria does. Everyone knew our situation. So the police were keeping an eye on the house. People were coming to Becky's parents' house to donate toys and food and clothing and play with the kids. My brother flew in from Michigan to spend a week and a half with our family, sometimes sleeping overnight in the hospital so he can have the latest updates on my condition. Someone even started a GoFundMe account to raise enough money to offset all the lost wages I had incurred from my hospitalization. And so I could feel this personal bacteria, I called it, those thoughts wash away. And I know that sounds weird, but we have to remember at all times that mental health is health. And that realization that I had positive things in my life physically changed me, not
Sorry, my
radically, not
phone
like a
was
poke.
ringing.
What's
Sorry,
that?
my phone was ringing. I had to turn off all
No,
the ringers.
no worries. I appreciate that.
Mm.
So I could feel my body even start to change, not like a Pokemon evolving or anything, but I felt a shift. And that shift became it became three questions that I asked myself, but I had the answers to. And in psychological terms, it's called cognitive behavior therapy. You know, if you're in a situation, you have these thoughts, and your thoughts during that situation set your mindset, and your mindset determines your behavior. Now, I do have to tell people sometimes it's CBT, not CBD, which can affect your mindset, but is just a little more expensive. So I have to clarify that. But those questions that I started asking myself eventually became what I call the attitude of gratitude. And that first question I asked myself was, what good things do you have in my life? Now, Jenna, what are some good things you have in your life? I know your fiance is probably up there, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What else
Um,
is good in your life?
well, I have a job that gives me the flexibility I need to manage the different things that are happening in my life. Um, we have a fun dog who is just a joy.
Excellent.
I have good friends. I have a loving family, and um, yeah, those are the things that I value the most right now.
Those are fantastic things. And those are the kinds of things I thought of as well. I thought of my family, my job, my faith, my home, all those big, great things. But then I started thinking about it and I thought, what about the small things? What about those seemingly insignificant parts of our lives that actually bring us that daily dose of joy? So,
This is one
along
of
with
them.
traveling with
Being able
okay,
to
yeah,
have a Diet Coke at work every once in a
there you
while, and
go. That
sometimes a
exactly. It's
joy.
something. Yeah, I mean, it's the small things that actually make us, smile every day. So, my brother not only flew from Michigan to stay with us, he also bought me an iPad. And on that iPad, I downloaded Netflix and I watched what was at that time the new season of Daredevil, the first season of Daredevil on Netflix. And I binge watched that show between surgeries. Anytime I wasn't being visited by people, I just fell in love with that show, not only because it was so well made and I love comic books, but because it was an escape. And I didn't have to think about not being able to eat 12 hours before surgery
Yeah.
or having to do this painful physical therapy to get my body back to where I was before. And then I thought about how the window in my hospital room didn't shine the sun directly to my eyes as I was confined to my hospital bed, which I know sounds really weird. But if you've ever been confined to a single space and you're dependent on other people, not having to ask someone for something is actually a blessing.
Yes.
And then there's the hospital pizza. Now, Jenna, what is your relationship with hospital food?
It is not edible. Most of the time, it is not edible.
Exactly.
It's just horrible.
But I will say the hospital pizza at St. Mary's Hospital in Rochester, Minnesota is almost worth you flying just to get some. It was fantastic. Now, it
Good
could
for
be because
them.
I hadn't had pizza in a month when I finally took a bite, but still, it was great. And I remember it to this day as being phenomenal. And to this day, I do this. I am gratuitous in my gratitude. I try to find as many things in my life, no matter how small, to be grateful for. For example, I love door hinges. I absolutely adore door hinges because they allow us to be able to pass through walls. There's a character on the X-Men named Kitty Pryde. I could be Kitty Pryde and pass through a wall because of door hinges. And then I think about that mouse in the middle there. I still have that mouse. It's held together by duct tape. You can see, but it's like me. It's held together by foreign objects, but still works well. And then you want to take a guess as to what that thing on the right side is?
Well, I would think it's your skin graft.
It's my right armpit. Now, a funny thing about right armpit about skin grafts is that they are non-porous, which means they don't sweat, which means I haven't had to use deodorant on that armpit since 2015. You know how much money you save by
That's
only
a real
using,
positive.
yeah. You know what? You don't save a lot of money by only using deodorant on one armpit. I don't have a money like my deodorant money bin or because of that, but it's still a fun thing that I find humor in, and that humor is a positive thing. And I've even used my skin grafts for cosplay when I go to comic book conventions. But it's being able to see all the positivity around you. And even if you're not using that item at the time, like for example, I have a Swiss Army knife on my desk here. Now I'm not using the Swiss Army knife at this time, but I'm thankful that I have it in case I do need it. And so if you could, just always think about the big and small things in your life. Even if you're just walking down the hall and you enjoy the view, or you like someone, you like how uh, someone's color scheme works on them, or even if you like the lighting, whatever it is, just think about as many positive things in your life, and you're going to find that you may not have a lot of money in your bank account, but you're going to feel wealthier with all those positive things around you. So that was the first question I asked myself. The second question I asked myself was, who do you appreciate or are thankful for, and why? And going back to that first question, I answered that with, again, my family, my friends, people who share my faith, my coworkers. But in the hospital, I have a couple different people that I was especially thankful for. The guy on the left there, pushing me away as I'm looking like Walter White from Breaking Bad, that's my best friend, Dave. Now, Dave and I went to college together. We're fraternity brothers. Actually, today is the anniversary of our fraternity, so I have to give him a call later.
Mhm.
But he lives in Montana. He and his wife boarded a plane to fly to Minnesota to visit me for a weekend. And this is us escaping to go to a restaurant. The first time I had ever been out of the hospital since my hospitalization. And so I'm greatly thankful for him. And then on the right side here, these are a pair of nurses that helped me. And Amanda is on my right, and Aaron's on my left. This picture was taken right before the pandemic hit. In fact, it's like the Saturday before things started closing down. And the reason why I share this picture is because not only were the nurses professional, I mean, they are Mayo Clinic nurses, but they were actually very kind and personable, and they became my friends. And and to this day, I try to stop by to see if any of them are there so I can give them updates as to how I'm doing, and just to continually thank them for what they have given me, because without them, I mean, maybe I may have survived, but their kindness and their friendship actually made it a lot easier for me to make it through day to day.
Yeah,
And so,
good nurses,
you know,
huge. They're
what's that?
huge. Good nurses are a huge deal.
Yes, yeah, they are. And so, even more than, I mean, I'm thankful for my surgeons, definitely, but the nurses were a huge part of my life then. And so I try to acknowledge and appreciate it. I let them know that I appreciate them. And in fact, I don't have a slide for this, unfortunately, but I was listening to you talk about that generational gap. And I have actually a technique that might help you with that, Jenna. It's called the triple A. You might want to write this down. And the triple A is designed to actively augment your appreciation of someone. And so how you do the triple A is you first think of someone that you're connected to. You have, I call them their social circles. We all have different social circles. So you think of someone you're connected to in that social circle, say work, for example, and you remove them out of that circle only to remove the connection to yourself. And that's important because you're not trying to see this person as they are connected to you. You're trying to see how this person affects the world around them. And then you look at how this person benefits the world in a positive way. Could be how they do their job for customers. It could be how they positively relate to their coworkers. It could be how they parent their kids, how they treat their parents, how they operate within the world, the community, how they donate their time or their resources. You try to see all the different ways this person is a positive force in the world. And then you put them back into that social circle, and they're still the same person, but you have this lens of positivity you've now viewed them through, that you can now share your appreciation with them. And it's important because I'm not saying that you're going to become best friends with this person, but you can develop a stronger sense of respect, and you might actually find some commonalities that might help you within the workplace. And I think when you're talking about that generational gap, that the young people, the young, the millennial might look at the Gen X and say, "Oh, they just, they have that sense of humor. They're from this." But if they looked at that person and said, "Wow, they're a really great parent, or they are very efficient in how they do their work," and they try to see all the different ways this person is a positive force, that doesn't erase all the negatives, but it might make interactions with that person a little more positive and develop a stronger connection by using the AAA. And so
That's an
that's
interesting concept. And I think that it could be very valuable. Um, so I have some good notes that I've taken on
good.
that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Definitely. And so I thought about what I could be thankful for. I thought about who I could be thankful for. Then I thought about, how can I be someone else's hero and give them something thankful, something to be thankful for. In the hospital, though, I was busy recovering. That was my job. But when I left the hospital, when I was discharged, I started mowing the lawns of my neighbors when they were out of town, or maybe they were busy. Like, for example, we once had a family that was just to the south of us, that had twins. As well as being a father of twins, I know how busy that can get. So I mowed their lawn for them. I also go out on runs, and I pick up garbage when I can, so I can keep my neighborhood clean. And then there's the classic opening doors for people, and which doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you open a door for someone, you're stopping whatever you are doing in your life to let them go by. And who knows who might need an extra hand, like opening a door for them. And so I started doing those little actions and started trying to help people out. And what I found was, when people are noticing that, they started taking action as well. So by my actions, I started, increasing those actions among my community. And in fact, I'll be on a run. I'll have someone yell, "Hey, are you the garbage guy?" I'll say, "What? Aren't you the guy that picks up garbage on the road?" "Yeah, that's me." "Hey, man, thanks so much." And so it helps, that those actions are not in a vacuum. People notice them, and the more we can get people to do those things, those acts of kindness, it spreads and spreads and spreads like a good bacteria.
Mhm.
And personally, what I noticed was, the more gratitude I practiced, the more positive I became. And when I felt more positive, especially when I was discharged, I started looking at my new lease on life, my second chance, as how can I make this the best second chance possible? And so I started pushing myself. And one of those ways was I started running. And I previously had run a 5K in uh, right before my hospitalization in 1929, but I wanted to beat that. And a
Not
couple years later,
1929. What? 19, not 1929.
yeah, 19 minutes,
What
29
did you
seconds.
say?
Yeah.
Oh, your time.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, not the stock market crash. No, sorry. Sorry, runner jogger, jogging,
Minutes,
uh,
19 minutes, 29 seconds.
yes,
Got
yeah, sorry, thanks for the clarification. Yeah, so,
it.
low 6-minute miles, and I wanted to get back there. So I started training for it. And I have to tell you, my first mile sucked. My mind was ready to run a mile. My body wasn't. It was not ready for taking getting, pushing my body that hard. So the first mile was awful, but I started working at it. I started doing a walk run method. And pretty soon I started running again and being able to not only run as far as I used to, but faster than I used to. And on that picture on the left, that was me finishing the Med City Marathon. And at the time was a Boston Marathon qualifying time. Now, because so many people were uh, were qualifying for Boston, they had to add a bubble. And so my time didn't hold up to the bubble. So the day I found out I wasn't running Boston, I signed up for the Lake Wobegon Trail Marathon, which is next month. And I'm currently training for that one. But that wouldn't be without that resilience that came from my gratitude and positivity. That middle picture is of me receiving my first degree black belt in Taekwondo, something that I didn't start doing until my son decided he wanted to go into Taekwondo. And I asked him to, if I could join a year after he started, and he said yes. So I started taking classes with him, and that's me earning my first degree black belt. And the picture on the right is me tandem skiing with that son. It's something we really enjoy doing together. And I just love being able to do those things that I used to do before my hospitalization. And then I also started writing articles. I started a podcast. And I was even on the left hand side, that's me featured in Runner's World magazine in the January 2022 edition. Because I felt so positive, even though I look like a discount Deadpool, I know that my story and my message can serve people. And it's through my gratitude and positivity I was able to do that. And so now I want to ask you, Jenna, based on your origin story, how are you going to use it? Because, remember that your story comes with questions. And while you are getting married and you have this awesome wedding plan, life is not perfect. And so we have
Don't
to
know
always
that.
keep in mind, how are we going to answer the questions that we're faced with? And so for me, I look at my body. I almost died. I'm forever scarred on a good quarter of my body, not only my upper right hand side, but that left leg with a missing muscle that looks like I was bitten by a shark. And even though I have a great message and story, I'm constantly being turned down on my speaking engagements for whatever reason. I am always feeling or facing rejection. But through the attitude of gratitude, I have the positivity, the gratitude, and the resilience to keep pushing because I know that I have a message to serve and people need to hear that message. And so, I want you to think about what's that struggle? And we've talked about it actually already, that generational gap that's, keeping them from moving up and moving on and upward. And, I'm wondering how we can help with that. And so, it starts by thinking about what's going well, no matter how small it is, your Diet Coke, door
Mhm.
hinges, right armpits, whatever, acknowledging and thanking the people who help you out and letting people know you appreciate the way they benefit the world in a positive manner, and then helping people out with kind words. It could be some assistance in some way, maybe letting them know they're not alone in the world with what they're facing. And so I just ask you to think acknowledge, and give. And as you notice, TAG, it spells tag.
I know,
And like,
I'm writing that in my notes. Tag,
yeah,
think,
yeah,
acknowledge, give.
yeah, the like the attitude of gratitude. And the more, and I don't know about you, Jenna, but playing tag by yourself is boring and embarrassing. When you invite, it's when you invite people in and you involve people, it gets a lot more exciting, and you can make a lot of great change happen.
I would agree with that.
Yes. So, uh, looking forward, I'm wondering, is there a time where we can maybe meet again, or maybe set up something where I could, work with you or someone else to help you affect that change, within those two offices?
Maybe, we we just signed up with executive coach to help with some of that. And I think we'll know more in the next month on how that's going and whether we want to do some other kinds of training around that based on what comes out of the conversations there.
Okay. Well, I'm
So
going
I
to
would
put
say
the
let's touch base. What is
okay.
it? April 10th, so mid-May, to see where where we are landing and what our plan forward is. But I
Yeah.
think if we want to do some um training around, thinking positive and having an attitude of gratitude, that you'd be a good person to come in and help facilitate that.
Excellent. Yeah, I would love to help. Yeah, that'd be great. So check out in mid-May. Okay. And then also I mentioned briefly that I also wrote a book, and I'm going to put the link into the chat. If you just want to check it out, I'm not saying go buy my book. I'm not going
Okay.
to argue against you buying my book, but I'm going to put the link into the chat. It's called From Survivor to Striver. And what the reason why I'm mentioning it is because not only does it include my story, but it also includes a 6-month gratitude journal
Oh,
that has weekly and daily prompts. And, that's something that, if I were to come in, I would definitely grab copies of the book along, and, we can use it as a study, practice some of the strategies in there. So that might be also a tool that could help us out.
awesome. Came out paperback in October. So recent.
Yes. 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 I
Congratulations.
thank you very much. Yeah, I was working on it for a little while, and then last summer I finally just kicked myself in the rear and said, "We got to get this done." And it just so happened I had just run that marathon, so I actually have the details of me running that marathon in there. So it's quite it has a lot to offer everyone, I think, in terms of the stories and the insights.
Awesome.
So,
Well,
well,
I'm gonna read
well
an excerpt on Amazon.
yeah, please do, please do.
All right. Well,
So,
thank you very much, Chris. I really appreciate your story. I'm glad you are here to be able to tell it.
thank you.
And I think you're right. Our origin stories are not necessarily what people will think when they look at what you look like from the outside, right? So,
Mhm.
um, and they aren't necessarily where you originated, but it's
Yeah,
what made you who you are. So
ex-
I appreciate your time and talking to me about it today.
definitely. Well, I appreciate you, Jenna, and sharing your not only your professional wins and struggles, but again, congratulations on the impending wedding. I hope everything goes well. And yeah,
Thank
if you
you.
ever feel the need to let me know how things go, I'm happy to hear about it. Um,
Okay.
Yeah, but in the meantime, please have a fantastic day, and we'll touch base soon.
Okay, thanks, Chris. You take care.
Thank you. Yeah, you too.
Bye
Yep. Bye
bye.
now.